Okay, can you both tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Well, Leslie and I met in '89. I had just come out of the divorce machinery and Leslie was just heading into it. At that time I had spent a lot of time in the Middle East working, and Leslie was a financial whiz in the city. Life-changing things happened and we met as a part of a social group. And it wasn't until a good while later that the relationships blossomed. We came together, we got married, and all things were great for about 6 years, and then the diagnosis for the MS happened, and life took a different path, which is where we find ourselves today.
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about your diagnosis, Leslie, and what that was like?
It wasn't very nice. I went to the doctors with severe double vision, had my eyes tested, and the optician sent letters straight to the doctors, and I got called into hospital and had numerous tests done, and I thought I had a brain tumour. But I had an MRI and they called us into the consulting room, and the lady doctor says, "Well, I hate to tell you, you've got MS. She says, "There's nothing we can do for it." And she just left us, left the pair of us sitting there. And I burst into tears because I was convinced that it was a brain tumour.
Right, so was that more relief for you? Right, okay. Okay. So did you get any more information at that time what
None
MS was?
whatsoever.
Nothing at all. Okay. So how did you set about getting some of that information from leaving that, that room and leaving that car park? Where did you go next?
Well, we heard about
We went straight to the
MS branch in Morpeth.
we went straight to the society.
Right, okay.
Yeah. See, Leslie and I, what was commonly classed at the time as go-getters. I was a professional engineer running around the world, and Leslie was a financial whiz. So finding information was quite easy for us because it was part of our lives. So it didn't take long to find a local branch, at which we jumped in with both feet. And as you know, the society provides untold wealth of information. It's all updated as we go through time. So within the space of about 6 months, I think we had just about everything we could have wished for, information-wise. So as Leslie's disease progressed, we were more able to cope in accessing other information and services. Although at the time it took Leslie about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years maybe for the disease to develop enough to require outside assistance.
Right, okay. How long ago is it, Leslie, that you were diagnosed?
1995.
1995, right, okay. Just thinking of, at that time and the couple of years after it, did you want information at that stage? Were you craving information, or was it really the last thing that you wanted to think about at that time?
Well, I wanted information because I hadn't really heard of multiple sclerosis.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know all about it.
I mean, like most people in that situation, we were totally in the dark. Never heard of MS at all. Like Leslie had said in the intro, that we thought it was a brain tumour. But MS, what's MS? So the information we got was actually very necessary, so we could prepare ourselves, not only for the next day, but for the next month and the next year.
Yeah.
So we would have, like I said, being the sort of people we are, we love plans. So we had to have a plan of action. And I know it's not easy for everyone, but we found it quite simple.
Okay. Okay, so sort of between 1995 and now, can you tell us about some of the services that you've received and what they've been like, you know, the good bits and the maybe not so good bits?
Initially, it was pretty good. The initial contact I made was for a stair lift because Leslie's walking had become affected, and although she wasn't a wheelchair user at that time, she had trouble lifting the stairs. So rummaged around, went down to the local council officers and said, have you got disabled contact, whatever, OTs? I didn't know what an OT was at the time.
Yes,
but, so it was all a learning curve. So I originally asked for a stair lift, and this young girl come, and she was an absolute star. She was our initial contact, and she was everything an OT you would want. Sit her down. It's not just now. What about in the future? 5, 10, 15 years. Obviously, she had more experience than we had, and we went sort of floundering around like a fish on a dock. So we got a lot of information off her, a lot of help, a lot of support, and a lot of confidence almost had. Because at the time, I think we were normally, you know, your mind's in a turmoil, but Heather was good, very good. So all the services we accessed at that time, she actually put in place, and were very good. And that lasted us. We didn't need to contact anybody for about 8, 10 years, wasn't it? Until the disease had really progressed.
Okay, so at that stage, who was the next service that you contacted?
We tried to access service from the same office, although Heather moved on, and we got a mixed reaction from the OTs in that same office. Now, bear in mind that this was about 12 years later. So I think we got a duff one, because that was a particular item I was interested in, ramping really for the back of the home, so Leslie could access the garden. But I don't know where this girl came from, and even yet we're talking maybe 8 years later. When I think about her, I still don't know where she was coming from.
Right.
She hadn't been through the door 5 minutes, and a lot of trumpet blowing and flag waving, how good they were and how qualified they'd all been to college, and I'm saying, well, I just want to ask about ramping, you know.
So obviously there was a bit of a time lapse between you know, your really good experience and then your not so good experience. Have you got a kind of a gut feeling on what that was? Do you think it was just a personnel thing, so, you know, a different person maybe not having the same ideas or the same knowledge or the same information or knowledge of MS maybe? Or do you think it was budget? Was it money? Lack of money, or
no? Well, you see, at the time, I asked this lady had me confused and disorientated by her attitude that I asked for someone else. Now at the time, the next lady that came, very nice, right, and I explained it. Well, you've had what you're going to get, and that's not in the budget, blah, 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 and what you're asking for is not in the terms of the budget. All right, okay, fine, that was no problem. It was just a matter of employing a joiner and getting the work done. But we've started to access the services recently within the last 6 months. And there again, we've had mixed reaction. It seems to be a little bit more, I get the feeling it's got more to do with money, prestige. You know, it doesn't seem to be so much about the patient or the carer. It's more budgets, in-office stuff, you know, promotions, this sort of that. They seem to be more concerned about themselves.
Okay.
That's the feeling I get.
Okay.
You know.
Just before we go on to talk about other services, I'm just really mindful to ask you something that occurred to me just as you were talking earlier, Mike.
Mm.
When you were talking pretty much when Leslie was initially diagnosed and you made that first, few phone calls to the occupational therapy
Yeah.
service to get your stair lift and things.
Yeah.
And you just said, almost as a passing comment, you said, well, what I now know is an occupational therapist came.
Mm-hmm.
But casting your mind back to that time, was it almost like a new language that you had to learn?
Oh,
To
yes,
know-
I think so. Not great deal, but the jargon. Every industry uses its own jargon to describe. Middle management use things like prune the hanging fruit and stuff like where it's not rocket science and all that. Something similar. Wasn't difficult to get a hold of, but initially they were talking to you about forms and form number. Oh, you'll need an F110 and all that sort. Excuse me, plain English if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Now, not so bad, but in the initial stages, yes, little confusing. Obviously, you're like a fish out of water because it's an absolutely new
Something
environment.
totally new to you.
But it didn't take long for us to get into the hang of it. Plus the fact that, like I said, the society, we joined the society in the branch we actually went to. Obviously, the well knowledgeable people that had been around MS a long time. So we got a lot of help off them. Initially, our forms were filled in by members of that branch's committee, and they took the time to explain this, that, and the other. Whereas the professionals didn't. They just sort of throw stuff at you. Even yet, they throw forms at you, say, fill that in.
Yeah.
And you excuse me? And it's all right them giving you, it's like a tax return. They give you another book that's twice the size of the form and they explain what you've got to fill in. And sometimes you can, oh yeah, that's what they mean by that. But living with them, it's not black and white. So the questions are not standard. They give you standard questions to answer on the forms and whatnot. But life isn't standard. It's not black and white.
Okay.
What I found as well is they don't speak the disabled person like they are a person.
Right.
And have got thoughts of their own and opinions.
Yes,
It was all talked above my head.
Yeah.
Right.
I must admit, I will qualify that in saying that the present negotiations we're having, I found that is not so much now as it was at that time.
So that seems to be getting better.
So I would imagine that the professionals themselves using tools like this, their training's getting better. And I think the attitude of the actual people that's doing this role is different as well.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a feeling I have. The attitude's different.
Okay.
I don't know why, but it is.
Okay. Well, that's good. It's obviously good that we've had some progress over.
I think so. I think so.
Recent years.
Yeah. I think if there is any problems, I think it'll be isolated at bad apples. To be honest with you.
Right.
Because I have a lot to do with North Tyneside social services because I try to get involved in one or two of our members who are elderly and need extra help and whatnot. And of late, I've been involved in that side of it, and the elder care side, and they seem to be exactly the same, very conscientious. But there again, like everybody else, it all comes down to money, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the biggest problem, money. Well, nearly.